Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to Monorail Monday. This is going to be episode number 40, the 40th episode. We're talking about previous stories, behind the scenes working at Disney, operational stuff, weird things that happen, and things like that. So let's get underway here. Today we're going to talk about parade control. I did not do that very much, but I did have the opportunity to do a few shifts, not even entire shifts, a few bits and little chunks of parade control. Sometimes when they were short-handed of cast members on the usual parade control groups in the different lands. Sometimes we would get polls from different areas. When I was in Tomorrowland merchandise, I got polled. We normally would never have done parade control, but I did get polled once there. And also a couple of times from monorails. And it's the same kind of thing. Monorails would never be in the park in costume most of the time. However, on certain times, if they were short-handed and needed people, the call would go out and we would send a couple of people to work parade control. And generally what that meant for non-regular staffing of the parade control, basically we would get sent usually in the hub right in front of the castle, and it could be anywhere like along the bridges getting ready to move towards Adventureland, Tomorrowland, right in front of the castle. It would be kind of in that area and on the fringes. Generally, I wasn't doing a whole lot of being in the middle of the hub. It was kind of on the fringes, making sure people aren't standing on railings, they aren't standing on the trash cans, and waving a wand, keep moving, don't stop here, that kind of thing. And it was sort of out of the outer fringes of the hub as you start to move away from the parade or coming into the parade to keep people moving and just keep things from getting a little chaotic. Limit how many people are spread out sitting and blocking others or blocking the walking path and things like that. Parade control was very interesting for someone who wasn't doing it a lot. It was something a little bit different. On the other hand, as I'm sure many of you seen with parades, the parades themselves can get a little bit crazy with people saving spots or trying to cut in at the last second, people trying to stand on things. Parade control is basically a good reason to get yelled at a lot. I'm sure there are like those great moments where you find a cool place for a kid to sit or something. I'm not sure, or probably watching the parade and a character comes over and waves or acknowledges a guest. I didn't get to experience that part of it. It was pretty much just yelling at other people and having other people yell at you. Yelling, I mean, strongly suggesting and trying to be as friendly about it as you can. But the fact was, parade control was basically, I'm going to go and attempt to control a mass of people, and I'm probably going to get yelled at a lot for our next hour. So it's kind of a give and take. Do you want to get out of monorails for an hour and change things up? But you're also going to end up dealing with a bunch of BS and a bunch of people yelling at you too. Not every time, but that was what you had to deal with a lot in those areas. When it comes to parades, much like there are some of the shows in all the parks, including Universal, when you have a regular repeating show or parade, you get what they call a show dump, theater dump, parade dump, which basically means the show is over, the parade is over, all of a sudden the mass of people disperse. And in monorails, what we usually experience would be the parade or firework dump. In monorails, we would always have the parade dumps from the 3 o'clock and the evening electrical or spectromagic parades. That basically means as soon as those parades end, the crowd's exit. You would get it for things like the Stunt Spectacular, the Western Stunt Show at Universal, something like the Country Bears Lets Out, anything like that. The parades, though, were the main source of all of a sudden, you have Big Thunder. And as a guest, you probably have experienced where as soon as the parade ends, the lines at Big Thunder grow a ton, and they have basically procedures and schedules stuff. They expect these kind of things. Monorails is no different. They basically have people coming on and starting their shifts. Changeovers happen right before the parade, so that you've got the afternoon staff coming in and everybody's up there ready to go. The stations are fully staffed and ready for the big exit, and then it slows down again, and people tend to be exiting more than arriving after that time anyway. But so that's one of the things you're preparing for on monorails, is waiting for that parade dump. You get to miss that if you are parade control, if you're a monorail person substituting over there at the parade control. So yeah, that was kind of nice. You're on the other end of the parade exit and directing people that direction more than you are on the receiving end at the station. But that was something that either way you're going to be dealing with the parade. But when you were doing the parade control thing, and it was such a very occasional thing, there weren't really standard procedures, at least not that I ever was aware of, working parade control as somebody who's not in that area, not Main Street, that kind of thing. Usually you would never see costume cross-contamination for costuming. You aren't going to see a person in a monorail costume in Fantasyland. You're not going to see a monorail costume in Frontierland, that kind of thing. Everybody accepts that, and that's one of the reasons they did the utilidors, the tunnels underneath the Magic Kingdom Park. But despite all of that, you did sometimes see a monorail costume. Probably most of you have never seen that, but it did happen occasionally that around the hub, because the hub is not right on, it's not Main Street itself right there. I guess they figured that was okay because you're in the hub area, you're not in the land, and yeah, it's not exactly, it's closer to Tomorrowland. It's closer to a fit with Tomorrowland than it was some of the others. So that's mostly where we would end up, is kind of on that edge of that bridge towards Tomorrowland, or just past Main Street. And I guess in a way we fit a little bit like some of the Main Street costumes, or not Main Street costumes, like Railroad or something like that, because you'd see some of the Railroad folks in costume sometimes over with the parade control. And as far as who was giving you information or what direction there wasn't a lot. It would be whoever is the parade control lead in that general area would kind of not even know you were there. They must have requested somebody coming, but they would basically just kind of, are you here for parade control? Okay, do this, or stand in this area, or we need a body here. So it was a little disorganized. It wasn't, but this is the kind of thing where it was just kind of filling in gaps. The parade is getting ready to come. We want to be able to sort of control this kind of stuff, or keep traffic moving in this area, foot traffic, things like that. So that was definitely a little bit of a challenge when you go out there. You get your wand and find out as much as you can about what you should be doing, trying not to overstep whatever it is you're supposed to be doing. You don't want to yell at people too much, but keep people off of the, standing on the benches, standing on trash cans and things like that. So that was always kind of a challenge. A friend of mine got to do that one time. And he told me a story of, he was working parade control, and he was doing the same kind of thing. He was kind of like directing traffic and trying to keep people moving. And this guy got his kid on his shoulders, standing on his shoulders and holding his legs, and then the guy himself was trying to climb up on the railing for the bridge to Tomorrowland. So you know that there's that bridge there. He's trying to climb up on the railing and using one of the light posts as sort of a balance, while his kid is standing on his shoulders. This is like a human totem totem pole or something, with this kid standing on top of his shoulders while he tries and stands on the railing. And he was trying to get the guy to to stop doing that. And the guy was yelling at him, and eventually the kid did start to fall off the shoulders. Dad caught him, but he said he thought for sure this kid was going to either hit the pavement or fall into the moat behind him. And he just couldn't believe it, that this guy was not, he didn't listen until he was falling off. He basically was ignoring him, ignoring my friend, the cast member, until he was falling off of this thing. So people did that all the time. They still do, I'm sure, to this day. I've got pictures from the 70s, from when we went in the very early 70s, and there are people climbing on trash cans there. Only at that time there were fewer, I think there were fewer people yelling at everybody to get off of the trash cans. As you know, in Epcot, those are dining tables. Shouldn't be sitting on people's dining tables. So the crowd control could get really crazy, especially on special evenings with things like the Wishes, Fantasy in the Sky fireworks way back then, and special events, July 4th, New Year's Eve, those kind of things. We generally didn't have anybody get sent over to parade control for that, because they already had themselves so highly staffed for the massive crowds, and monorails needed all hands on deck to handle the crowds that would be exiting. So we never got called over for things like that. They might have extra monorail people like around the exit, trying to direct people towards where the monorail lines are, but not inside the park. Usually that was just some random day or random evening where they decided, okay, we're a little short-handed, we need some help. So those were the kind of days that it did a little bit of the parade control. And the few times that I did the parade control, no major incidences, just besides people either not complying and constantly have to remind people to stay off the railings, stay off the benches, standing off the benches. You can sit on the benches, obviously, keep moving and that kind of thing, but nothing too major like a massive guest complaint or anything like that. But I did hear a couple of stories from friends, like this one guy who was climbing on the railings. I mean, that was crazy. And as much as some people really get upset and worked up about the parades, I'm glad I didn't have to deal with a lot of that. We did have I have seen at Disneyland. Of course, I didn't work at Disneyland, but I was an annual pass holder for a couple of years at Disneyland, even though I was not living in California. But I was out there enough that they have, especially with Fantasmic, there was a long stretch of time before they supposedly outlawed it, where people were putting out blankets and just reserving spot hours ahead, and they'd just be a spot occupied for hours ahead of time to get their spot. And that became a huge problem, because there's just people all along the walkway and all those areas blocking the street, blocking walkways and things like that with their blankets. I don't think it's ever gotten quite to that point in the Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, but people do reserve for a long time ahead and kind of block whatever space there is. And I think probably one of the worst days I ever spent in the park was the night of the first last Main Street Electrical Parade in the 90s. And Every time they tell you it's not coming back, it's going away for good, better come, and then it always comes back. But the first time it was the last one, and it had been in Disney World for whatever it was, almost 20 years, 15, 20 years, and I went with friends, and we went, and the park was absolutely insane. It was so crowded that we ended up going down in the utilidors and just hung out in the cafeteria until we decided to come back and grab our spots, because the park was so crowded. We weren't going to ride anything. We were just looking to come see the parade, and the parking lot was closed. It was just insane. I was glad I was there, but man, is it worth it? Not really. Not in the moment, certainly. But just wanted to talk a little bit about parade controls, just some of the craziness that you had to deal with, and it was kind of, you just on the spot, sort of making things up as you go, and that wasn't necessarily always fun, especially if you are not in a certain area. It's easy to make things up as I go in monorails, and I kind of know the operation. I know exactly what we're supposed to be doing, what they normally expect. I can improvise real fast on those. But in something like the parade control situation, sometimes it was such chaos. It's hard to improvise without, you're trying to avoid stepping on anybody's toes, pissing off guests, pissing off other cast members. You don't want to counteract something that they're doing that they all know about and you don't. So it was a little balancing, but hey, it was nice to get off the monorail platform a little bit. So that's just a little bit of a look at parade control and some of the chaos of working that. We'll be back next week for another Monorail Monday. We're coming close to the end of the season now, coming close to the end. Remember, like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, comment below. Do you have any funny crowd stories during the parades? Any chaos or things that you've seen? People doing insane things, people trying to put their kids on your shoulders? Feel free to comment below. But remember, kids, have a good time all the time.